Hey guys. So, this is going to be a long one, and it's something I've been sitting on for a while. I'm still processing everything that happened. This is a story about how I uncovered a family's secret so dark, it completely changed my life. It's about betrayal, hidden truths, and ultimately, how I had to make an impossible decision that tore my family apart. I don't even know if I should be telling this, but maybe getting it out there will help me make sense of it all. So, here it goes. I grew up in what seemed like a perfect family. I was the youngest of three kids. My older brother, Mark, was the golden boy, always perfect, straight-A student, captain of the soccer team. My sister, Sarah, was the responsible one. She always had her life together, and people loved her for her kindness. And then there was me. I was the wild one, I guess. I had my issues, rebellious, didn't always fit in, but I still felt like I belonged. We were tight-knit. We had our occasional fights, sure, but nothing too serious. Just typical sibling stuff. But everything changed when I was 22. It all started with a simple thing. Or, at least it seemed simple at the time. My mom asked me to go through some old family photo albums that had been in storage for years. She wanted me to help her organize them for an upcoming family reunion. So, I started going through these dusty old albums. There were a ton of pictures of us as kids, family vacations, holidays, all the usual stuff. But one thing caught my eye, an old photo of my parents, Mark, Sarah, and a woman I didn't recognize. I'm a pretty inquisitive person, so I asked my mom about it. Mom, who's this woman in the photo? I asked, pointing to the image of this woman standing beside my parents and Mark. She looked kind of young, maybe around my age at the time. My mom's face immediately went pale. She froze for a second before brushing it off with, "Oh, that's an old friend of ours. Just forget about it." But something in the way she said it made my skin crawl. It felt like she was hiding something, like she was trying too hard to downplay it. A few weeks later, I decided to dig a little deeper. I went to my dad and asked him the same question about the photo. He did the same thing, avoided the question, gave me some vague response about an old family friend, and changed the subject. But I wasn't letting it go. If there was one thing I had learned over the years, it was that my family always avoided tough topics. They'd shut down if you pushed too hard. So I started doing some research on my own. I had a couple of old high school friends who worked in archives and had access to public records. One of them helped me dig through old public documents, old articles, and online databases to find anything related to this woman in the picture. After a few weeks, I found her name. Her name was Emily Harrington. Here's where it gets crazy. Emily Harrington had been listed as a missing person nearly 30 years ago. Gone without a trace. I couldn't believe what I was reading. How could my parents be so involved with someone who had been declared missing? The more I dug, the more horrifying it got. Emily had vanished just a few weeks after a huge family argument that I had never heard about, something involving my mom and dad and Mark and Sarah. It was as if the whole event had been erased from family history. So I did what anyone would do. I confronted my parents. I remember it so clearly. I sat down with them, asked them about Emily, about the missing person case, and how she fit into our family history. The room went dead silent. My mom started shaking. My dad went completely white. Then Mark, yes, my perfect, golden boy older brother, exploded. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he yelled, slamming his fist on the table. "You don't know anything." At that moment, I realized there was more going on than I could ever have imagined. The truth comes out. After everything exploded, I did a lot more digging. Mark started acting strange. He was avoiding me, acting distant, and every time I tried to ask him about the past, he shut me out. But eventually, Sarah broke. She was the one who told me the truth. Emily wasn't just some family friend. She was my brother's girlfriend. And she was pregnant with his child. One night, there had been a huge fight. Emily had been planning to tell my parents, but before she could, she disappeared. It turned out that Emily had been murdered by someone in our family. And the worst part? The person who did it was Mark. He had gotten violent after Emily had threatened to go public with their relationship, and when she refused to have an abortion, he snapped. It felt like my whole world was falling apart. How could my brother, the golden boy, the one I had looked up to all my life, do something so monstrous? How could my parents cover it up? How could they live with that guilt and lie to us all these years? The truth came out slowly, bits and pieces, like shards of glass that cut deeper the more I uncovered. My parents had known what Mark had done, but they had covered it up. They went to extreme lengths to erase any trace of Emily, even going as far as to bribe people to stay silent and manipulate the police investigation. And all these years they had lied to me, to Sarah, and to the world. I eventually confronted Mark. He didn't deny it. He was cold, emotionless, like he had buried his humanity so deep that it didn't even matter anymore. I was faced with an impossible decision. What do you do when your family, the people you've trusted your whole life, are not who they claim to be? Do you forgive them for the sake of family? Do you turn them in and destroy everything you've ever known? I chose the latter. I couldn't live with the lies anymore. I couldn't be a part of a family that had buried a crime this monstrous. I went to the authorities. Mark was arrested, and the investigation into what happened to Emily was finally reopened. It tore me apart to watch everything crumble, to see my parents go through the trial, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I had to stand up for what was right, even if it meant losing everything I had ever known. The whole thing destroyed our family. Mark was sentenced to life in prison. My parents' marriage fell apart. My relationship with my siblings is fractured beyond repair. And I don't know where I go from here. But at least I can sleep at night knowing I did the right thing. Emily's family finally got the justice they deserved. I still think about her sometimes, and I wonder what would have happened if she had never crossed paths with my brother. I wish I could say that I've healed, but I haven't. I'm still processing everything, and I don't know if I ever will. But one thing I do know for sure is that sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who can hurt you the deepest. Outro. Thanks for listening, guys. I know this was a heavy one, but I felt like it was important to share. If you've ever been through something similar, or if you've had to face the truth about someone you loved, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. Take care, and I'll see you next time.